Megan.
I'm Ciera.
And I'm Maggie.
And we're from TC2. For today's video, we are going to be doing another one-day tutorial. So we wanted to do a backbend kickover in today's tutorial. And we're going to do both the backbend part and the kickover part. So
it's a 2-in-1 special. Also, before we get started, if you have not subscribed already, please do. We would appreciate it.
So let's get started with the tutorial. Alright, so the only prerequisite thing you guys should have before trying your backbend kickover is a bridge up. This is just because it's going to be the position you have to be in anyway, so it's going to just help you out. You know what it feels like. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the first component, which is the backbend. And so the first thing that I'm going to recommend is figure out how wide your feet should be. I'd recommend going shoulder width, maybe a little bit bigger than shoulder width. If your feet are too close together, it's not going to be easy. You're going to have to bend your back more. So spread your feet out, it'll be much easier. Second thing, make sure you bring your arms all the way up to your ears before even bending backwards. A lot of times when people get started, they'll have their hands down here and they just like to go for it, and your hands are not going to be ready to touch the ground. So start up tall and then look your head up towards the ceiling and look at your pinkies. That way when you start bending backwards, you're going to be seeing the ground much earlier. You're going to anticipate the ground and it'll be much easier to actually do the backbend.
Alright, so in a back bend, you obviously have to bend your back. So you don't want to just kind of go flat down. You don't just want to be a board. You want to really think about bending at your lower back. Your lower back is your hinge, and you want to go, and you want to think about that. And that's where you should feel the little pincherooski.
So to give an example of what Maggie's talking about, the video on the left shows Megan not really bending her back versus the video on the right is her bending her back, and that's going to make it easier to do the back bend. Alright, another thing that you shouldn't do, and I know we keep saying things that you shouldn't do instead of things you should do, but I feel like half the time people could do it if they just correct these small things that they're doing. So what you should not do is when you're bending back, have your heels lift off the ground or just go here. Do you guys see what I'm doing here?
Do a Michael Jackson.
Little Michael Jackson moment. We do not want to do that, because if your feet are coming off the ground, you're going to be so unstable and you will not make it to your hands. So keep everything firmly planted. And again, like we said, make sure you're bending through your back, not through your knees. They can bend as you bend back, but you don't want to be going here. Okay, so I know a lot of you guys, if you've watched backbend tutorials before, have probably seen the whole walking your hands down a wall thing. We're going to get to that, but this next thing is kind of a precursor to that, where we're really going to be using it to focus on, people say, make sure you're looking back for the ground. But you have to comprehend what that's going to feel like and what you're actually looking for. So we're going to do the whole start that we said at the beginning. Feet shoulder width apart, hands up nice and tall, and I'm going to look up. So now what I'm focusing is okay, as I start bending backwards towards this wall, what does that look like? When am I seeing the wall? Stuff like that. So just a little bit, I see the wall. So I think it's just if you've never gone backwards before, it's a whole new concept, and you're if you just start going for a backbend, you're not going to comprehend seeing anything. So I think this is good to get in the habit of comprehending what you're seeing, knowing what to expect when. So do that first, just a little bit of quick bend there, and you can come back up. Yeah.
Alright, so now we're going to use our handy dandy wall friend again, and we're going to go all the way down to the ground. This is really good if you don't have a spot, because it's kind of just a built-in spot. So you're going to go up, look at your pinkies, and walk your hands all the way down.
And you guys might have to walk your feet out as well if you end up standing too close on accident.
And you can go back up. But yes, the closer you are, the more your back has to bend, so I would recommend starting further out and closer.
So if you are lucky enough to have someone to help spot, we are going to demonstrate what that spotter should do to make sure you're doing your backbend safely. So gymnast stands like you normally would.
Spotter stands to the side, puts one hand on their back, and they can put one hand on your thigh to make you more comfy and safe.
Okay, and then I'm going to bend backwards. Spotter is going to support my back to make sure that if I were to fall, that I'm not going to fall down to the ground. So I bend back.
And you support their back. Ta-da!
So we're getting to the final component of the backbend portion of the tutorial, and so that's going to be using panel mats. I would honestly stick to using panel mats or mats of some kind instead of just stacking up random stuff. Maybe an ottoman is fine, but don't do tables or anything like that. Stick with something soft. And you could stack a lot of panel mats up. We only have one, so that's what we're going to demonstrate, but you could literally start with them super high and work your way down. But if you do that, and make sure you put them against a wall so you don't have panel mats sliding back and forth. Just like you were doing with the wall over there, make sure you're standing an appropriate distance. I would say you can start closer if you want, because if you're starting too far, then you're not even going to be on the mat, and then you're going to be doing the whole backbend, which is what you can't do right now. So start a little bit closer, and then obviously this can be much higher again, so you don't have to go that far back. But then you're working on going back, and then you don't have to stand up if you can't do that either. You can just bridge down like that. And then once you get good at doing that like over and over again, then go, not this way, take off a level, and honestly just like progress slowly. You don't have to take like the whole mat away. Just do like one at a time, get consistent at each level, and then eventually you're going to end up on the ground.
Alright, so for the first step of a kickover, you're going to go into your back bend, which you just learned, and then practice just lifting your leg up to get used to being on one leg.
Before also completely trying to go for the kickover, I feel like it's also super important to mention back flexibility. You don't have to be super flexible to have a backbend kickover, but you need to be aware of if it's an additional problem to why you're not being able to kick over. So let me go into a back bend, and then I'll show you the difference between kicking from like a super spread out, not flexible back versus one that's like not flexible, but closer together. So if you have a super unflexible back, maybe your back bend looks like this. Now my feet are super far from my hands, and I'm going to have to kick so much harder, versus if you can get closer together, that's going to be easier. Alright, so we're going to show you what these spotters are going to do for the kickover part. So go ahead and go into your back bend like you already have.
Spotter, you want to be on the side they're going to kick with. Go underneath, hand on leg, help them, guide them, maybe push them if they're not that.
Okay, we are going to revert back to what we were doing with the back bends, but this time, guess what? You can do the same thing with the kickover part too. We're going to start super high and then work down lower. Again, this is all we have to start with, but you could start much higher, and if you're all the way up here, like, it's going to be a pretty easy kickover, okay? So whatever you can make work, it's fine. So I would not recommend back bending into this. Just bridge up because that's a long way down. If yours is high enough, then you could do a handstand, bend your feet over, but if all else fails, just bridge up. And then kick. Again, there's not much to that because again, if you're starting super high, you're gonna be able to kick over. So then, let's go down a level. Make sure you do the other level like consistently beforehand before going down. That's what makes this part foolproof. Bridge up. Make sure your hands are nice and close. And kick. Also, what might help is instead of keeping both your feet like down stuck to the ground and trying to kick both over at the same time, I can demonstrate. Why don't I do that? So I could do this and then just try and kick both of them at the same time. It might be helpful to try and lift your leg up so that way as soon as I kick the leg that I'm standing on, I'm like already over. Do you get what I'm saying? Okay, just in case I was not super clear, I'm going to try and help like demonstrate by pointing to stuff. So Ciera, if she's kicking this leg over and it's so close to the midline, and once her leg gets over this, like it can start pulling her down, which is helpful. So once she kicks over and gets to middle, she's hardly doing anything. That's kind of the point that I was trying to make.
Also, another handy dandy tip is to make sure that your legs are split the whole time. They should not be together until you are on the ground. Complete it.
So once you tried out all those tips, you should have your backbend kickover, and it should look something like this. And then of course make sure you finish in on position. If you guys like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Also, if today's video was not like something you needed to learn, we have a whole tutorial playlist, so you can go search that, and I'm sure we have something that can help. We have a ton of tutorials, so we've probably got something to help you out.
The shout out from last week's video goes to the person on the screen. Thank you so much for watching and supporting us.
For a chance to get a shout out in next week's video, comment down below if you have your backbend kickover or not. And we will see you next Tuesday. Bye!